Okay, I have a number for you, and I want you to just try to visualize this pile of cash. You ready?
I'm always ready for a number. Lay it on me.
$72 billion.
Oh, wow. That's a staggering amount of money.
Right.
Just for context, that's roughly the GDP of a country like Luxembourg. What are we buying here? A colony on Mars?
You would think so, but no.
Huh.
That is the amount the tech industry spent on lobbying in 2025 alone. Just one calendar year.
Jeez.
Yeah, according to the data we pulled from Open Secrets, that's where we're at.
72 billion. That is not just standard cost of doing business money. That's full-blown panic mode money.
Exactly. It completely signals that the industry knows the Wild West era is over, the sheriff is in town,
All right.
and everyone is trying to buy the sheriff a drink,
Or just by the sheriff entirely.
basically. And that brings us to the topic of the day. We are doing a deep dive into AI regulation. And I know if you're listening to this and your thumb is hovering over the skip button because regulation sounds like, a lecture on tax code, please don't skip.
Yeah, seriously, stick with us. Because we're not talking about boring terms and conditions here. We're working from a briefing by Discuria titled The AI Regulation Gambit, and it frames this whole situation as a survival guide.
It really does. Because we're talking about bills being written right now that determine if you can trust an AI to diagnose your medical issues, or if an algorithm is legally allowed to deny your mortgage.
Or, and this is the really big one, who actually controls the reality you see on your feed during an election.
I really love that the briefing uses the word gambit. It implies a chess move, right? Like you sacrifice a pawn to gain position.
Right.
And that seems to be exactly what the big tech companies are doing.
It's a massive high-stakes game. And before we get into the three specific scenarios from the briefing, which are wild, by the way, we kind of need to look at the board, the regulatory landscape has split completely.
Yeah, it's a tale of two continents right now.
Hmm.
Over in Europe, the EU AI Act is fully live, and they did not come to play.
No, they didn't. The EU approach is very strict. We're talking about fines up to 35 million euros, or, and this is the part that keeps CEOs awake at night, 7% of a company's total global revenue.
7% of global revenue. If you're a major tech giant, that is tens of billions of dollars. That's not a slap on the wrist. That's, well, the board of directors gets fired
Oh,
money.
exactly. It's an existential threat. So Europe is acting like the strict parent. Meanwhile, the US is, well, it's a bit of a mess.
It's a total patchwork.
Right. You have individual states trying to pass safety bills. You have executive orders flying out of the White House that change every time the administration flips, but there's no sweeping federal law.
Which totally explains that $72 billion lobbying price tag.
Yeah.
Everyone is trying to write the federal rules before the rules get written for them.
Precisely. And the core tension, the real mission of this deep dive today is to explore this impossible balancing act. The briefing calls it the no safe middle.
Because if you regulate too much, you kill innovation. You make it so expensive to build AI that only the giants survive. Or you just hand technological dominance to other countries that frankly don't care about the rules.
But if you regulate too little, you get discrimination on a massive scale, you get deepfake chaos that breaks democracy, and you get tech companies that wield more power than sovereign nations.
So let's get right into it. The briefing breaks this down into three choose-your-own-adventure style scenarios. And the first one is about money, specifically your money.
This is the compliance paradox. And this one is fascinating because it really forces us to confront what we actually mean when we say we want fairness.
Okay, so picture this. You're the chief compliance officer at a major European bank. The EU AI Act is in full force, and you are using an AI system to process mortgage applications.
And let's be super clear about the scale here. You are processing 50,000 applications a month. Humans just cannot do that. If you didn't have the AI, the local economy would literally grind to a halt.
Right, and the AI is good. The stats in the briefing show it's 23% more accurate at predicting loan defaults than the old human underwriters were. It's making the bank money. But you find a glitch.
Well, it's not a glitch, it's a pattern. You discover the system has a statistical bias. It's denying applications from certain postal codes at a noticeably higher rate.
And when you overlay the demographics, those codes correlate heavily with immigrant neighborhoods.
Right. So under the EU AI Act, this is classified as a high-risk AI system. You absolutely cannot have a machine redlining neighborhoods. That's illegal, and frankly, it's just morally wrong.
So here is your dilemma as the executive. You have three choices. Option A, you shut it down. Pull the plug, go back to humans. Option B, you keep it, but add a human in the loop, meaning you force a human to review every single denial. Or option C, you argue to the regulators that it's actually fine.
Option C sounds like a fantastic way to get sued into oblivion, so let's skip that. The moral intuition here just screams option A, right? The machine is discriminating. You kill the machine. You go back to humans who understand context and have empathy.
That is what 99% of people would say. Get the biased robot out of here. But this is where the briefing drops a total bomb. They highlight a central bank study that compared AI decisions to human decisions in this exact context.
And what did the data actually show?
It found that human loan officers, those exact people with empathy and context, were actually denying minority applicants at a rate 31% higher than the AI was.
Wait, pause for a second. The humans were worse than the biased robot.
Significantly worse. And this is the deeply uncomfortable truth about AI bias. The AI is biased because it was trained on historical data created by decades of biased humans.
Right.
But the AI is actually less biased than the humans it replaced. It's a mathematical mirror, but it's a slightly cleaner mirror.
So if I shut down the AI to fix the discrimination, I am actually statistically increasing the amount of discrimination my customers face.
Exactly. You're returning to a system that is 31% more unfair just so you can tell the regulators, look, we aren't using a biased algorithm. It's a complete paradox. You're sacrificing the actual real-world outcome just for the appearance of morality.
That is incredibly counterintuitive. It kind of hurts my brain a little bit.
Okay, so option A is actually the more racist option, surprisingly enough. What about option B, the human in the loop?
This is the absolute darling of regulators everywhere. It sounds perfect on paper. Keep the speed of the AI, but have a human double-check it to catch the mistakes. Best of both worlds.
Right, the human acts as the safety net.
Except, safety nets only work if they actually catch you. The briefing calls this the human-in-the-loop trap. It brings in research from a major AI ethics lab on something called automation bias.
Automation bias, is that like when I blindly follow my GPS even though I can clearly see it's routing me into a lake?
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
When you give a human the job of overseeing a smart machine, the human brain just naturally disengages. The research found that human reviewers rubber stamp the AI's decision over 90% of the time.
Over 90%. Yeah. If the computer says deny, the human just assumes the computer processed thousands of data points they can't see. They look at the screen, they shrug, and they click confirm. They aren't analyzing anything, they're just complying.
So the human oversight is basically just theater. It's entirely performative.
It's very expensive theater. It buys you legal cover because you can point to a human signature on the denial form, but functionally, it does not fix the bias at all. It just slows everything down.
So we're stuck. The AI is biased, the humans are more biased, and the human overseeing the AI is asleep at the wheel. What is the actual takeaway for the listener here?
The takeaway is that we need to stop measuring AI against perfection because perfection just doesn't exist on this planet and start measuring it against the actual alternative.
Like, is it better than the guy named Steve who used to have this job?
Exactly. If the AI is flawed, but less flawed than Steve, that is progress. Even if it feels really uncomfortable to codify that specific flaw into software, we have to be realists about this, not idealists.
Man, that is a tough pill to swallow, but it makes perfect sense when you look at the numbers. Okay, let's shift gears completely. We are leaving the European Bank and flying to Washington, D.C. Scenario number 2, the lobbying calculation.
This is where that $72 billion figure from the intro really comes into play.
So put yourself in the shoes of a U.S. senator. You have a bill on your desk. It proposes pre-deployment safety testing.
Think of it kind of like the FDA, but for software.
Right. Before you release a super smart AI model to the public, you have to prove to the government that it's safe. You have to run it through a massive battery of tests.
On the surface, this sounds incredibly reasonable. We don't let companies sell cars without crash testing them. We don't let pharma companies sell pills without clinical trials. Why should an intelligence system be any different?
Exactly. But then you look at who is actually walking into your office to support this bill. It isn't the consumer watchdogs. It's the big labs. It's the massive tech conglomerates. They are cheering for this regulation.
And that is the exact moment your spidey sense should be tingling.
Why, though? Isn't it a good thing that they want to be responsible?
You have to look at the economics. The briefing mentions a leaked industry memo that estimates the compliance costs for this kind of safety testing. They peg it at around $50 million per model.
$50 million just to get the permit to launch.
Right. Now, for a tech giant, $50 million is a rounding error. They find that in the couch cushions in the executive lounge. But imagine you are a startup. You're two brilliant engineers in a garage with a genuine breakthrough idea. Can you afford a $50 million entry ticket?
Absolutely not. You're dead on arrival. You can't even enter the game.
And that right there is the moat. By supporting this regulation, the big labs aren't just trying to be safe, they are actively trying to pull the ladder up behind them. This is a classic economic concept known as regulatory capture.
Regulatory capture. That sounds a little sinister.
It's just cold economics. It's when the industries being regulated end up shaping the regulations to serve their own interests, usually by crushing new competition. The data in the briefing analyzed this pattern across different historical industries: railroads, telecommunications, pharma.
And the track record isn't great, I'm guessing.
Not at all. In 78% of cases where the industry incumbent heavily supported the regulation, it actually resulted in reduced competition within 5 years. The regulations effectively created a legal cartel.
So the open source community, the developers giving away code for free, the scrappy startups, they're the ones screaming about this. They're saying, you're basically making it illegal to compete with the giants.
Exactly. They argue that if you pass this safety testing bill, you just freeze the industry in time. The big guys stay big forever, and nobody else can ever enter the market.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. I don't really care if a pharmaceutical startup is small and scrappy. I don't want them selling me untested medicine that might kill me. Why should we prioritize startup economics over public safety? If the tech really is dangerous, shouldn't the barrier to entry be incredibly high?
That is the valid counterargument. You absolutely cannot leave high-risk tech unchecked, just to be fair to startups. But the expert consensus in the briefing suggests there are ways to regulate that don't rely on massive upfront fees that only rich companies can pay.
How does Europe handle this? Did they figure out a way around the moat?
Sort of. The EU focused on the application, not the underlying model. They regulate the risk level. So if you are using AI for healthcare or law enforcement, you get regulated heavily. It doesn't matter if you're a giant corporation or a tiny startup in a garage.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if you were using that exact same AI model to generate funny poems or organize your calendar, you are largely left alone.
So it's about what you actually do with the hammer, not the fact that you simply own a hammer.
Ideally, yes. It avoids the moat problem because it doesn't ban the technology itself from being created. But it creates a massive enforcement headache because tracking millions of individual applications out in the wild is infinitely harder than just testing the model once at the factory.
It seems like every single solution just creates a new, slightly different problem.
That is the absolute theme of AI governance, unfortunately.
Speaking of problems, let's go to the final scenario. And I have to say, this one kept me up at night. This feels a little too real for comfort.
Scenario 3, the viral election.
Okay, set the scene for us.
It's October. 3 weeks before a highly contested presidential election, tensions are incredibly high. Suddenly, a video drops on social media. It shows a candidate accepting a briefcase of cash in a dimly lit room. The audio is perfect. The lip sync is flawless. It looks 100% real.
But of course it isn't.
It's a deepfake. And here is the real kicker from the source material. The cost to generate this hyper-realistic video. The computing power, the model access. Less than $200.
That is the true democratization of disinformation. 10 years ago, if you wanted to forge a video that good, you needed a Hollywood studio or a state intelligence agency. Now, you literally just need a monthly subscription and a laptop.
Exactly. So the video hits, it gets 40 million views in 6 hours. It is everywhere. You are the head of trust and safety at the platform. The phone is ringing off the hook. What do you do?
I mean, the instinct is obvious, right? You delete it immediately, you use your internal AI detection tools to flag it as fake, and you scrub it from the server.
Right. And those detection tools are getting really good. The briefing says current detection rates are around 94% accurate. So you have a tool that is right 94% of the time. You hit delete, you save democracy.
Not quite. You actually just stepped on a massive landmine.
Why, 94% sounds like an A grade to me.
In a highly polarized political context, that 6% error rate is completely fatal. Imagine you take the video down, you publicly label it as disinformation. But what if it was actually real? What if your tool hit that 6% error margin?
Oh, you've just censored actual real evidence of corruption 3 weeks before an election.
Exactly. You have effectively interfered in the democratic process. And even if you are totally right, and it is a deep fake, the candidate supporters are going to claim you're rigging the election anyway. They will say, the platform is censoring the truth. It gives them a perfect, unassailable narrative.
They are trying to hide the briefcase. I can literally hear the press conference right now.
Precisely. A 94% accuracy rate is great for blocking spam email. It is absolutely catastrophic for moderating democratic discourse.
Okay, let's look at the actual impact, though.
Mm.
Does one fake video really change the outcome of an election? Or is this just noise in the system?
The research data in the briefing is pretty clear on this. High-intensity misinformation in the final month of an election changes the voting behavior of about 3 to 5% of undecided voters.
In a swing state, 3% is the whole ballgame.
It completely flips the board, so the stakes couldn't be higher.
But surely, taking it down is still better than leaving it up, even with the risk of a false positive. It has to stop the spread somewhat.
You would think so, but the digital forensic data shows a deeply depressing statistic. Removing viral content on a major platform, like just nuking it from the main feed, only reduces its total reach by about 30%.
Only 30%. Where does the other 70% go?
It goes dark. It moves to private channels, WhatsApp groups, Telegram chats, Discord servers, text message chains.
The dark social web.
Right. And once it's there, it is purely peer-to-peer. You cannot moderate it. You cannot fact-check it with a little label. And frankly, it gains this weird veneer of credibility because it feels like secret knowledge that the establishment didn't want you to see.
So moderation is basically a game of whack-a-mole. But every time you hit the mole, it just digs a tunnel into a private basement where you can't even see it anymore.
That is a very apt analogy. The expert consensus in the briefing is that platform moderation is just the wrong frame entirely. By the time a deepfake is viral, it is already too late. You simply cannot delete your way out of this problem.
So what on earth is the solution? If we can't stop the spread, are we just doomed to these post-truth elections where nobody believes anything they see?
We have to move upstream. The solution isn't deleting tweets after the fact. It's about authenticating the source at the moment of creation.
Like digital watermarks.
Exactly. We need cryptographic signatures baked into cameras and editing tools. So when a video comes from a verified news organization or a candidate, it has an unbreakable digital chain of custody.
So it's basically like the blue check mark, but embedded into the file itself.
Correct. If a video doesn't have that cryptographic signature, the browser or the app automatically flags it as unverified. We shift the entire paradigm from trying to detect the fakes, which is a losing battle against cheap technology, to verifying the real stuff.
Proof of origin.
Proof of origin. Because the structural reality is that creating fake evidence is incredibly cheap, $200 cheap, and highly scalable. Moderation is expensive, it's slow, and it's politically dangerous. You will always lose the race if you just play defense.
This has been, honestly, a little terrifying, but also extremely clarifying. We've covered a lot of ground today. The biased bank, the expensive regulatory moat, the cheap deepfake. How do we pull this all together? What's the thread connecting these three stories?
If we synthesize all this source material, there's a very clear meta lesson here. In every single scenario we discussed, the most satisfying, immediate action turned out to be the wrong one.
Right. Shutting down the biased AI at the bank felt like the moral choice, but it would have statistically increased discrimination against real people.
Passing the safety bill in the Senate felt like responsible governance, but it turned out to be a trap designed to kill market competition.
And deleting the deepfake felt like saving democracy, but it barely scratches the surface and actually backfires politically.
The real lesson is to look for the structural problem. We get so fixated on the specific bad outcome, the denied loan, the fake video, but the real issues are much deeper. It's about historical data bias. It's about incentive structures in capitalism. It's about the fundamental architecture of how information flows.
And it's really about questioning who benefits. That $72 billion in lobbying we talked about at the start, that isn't charity. When a massive incumbent company says, please regulate me, you really have to check their pockets.
Always check the incentives.
So for everyone listening, the next time you see a headline about a shiny new AI law or a big tech scandal, just pause for a second. Don't just look at the machine, look at the people building the machine, and definitely look at the people writing the rules for the machine.
And I actually have a final thought to leave you with, something building off all this that wasn't explicitly in the scenarios. We spend so much cultural energy worrying about the Terminator scenario machines rising up to physically destroy us, but perhaps that's entirely the wrong distraction.
What should we actually be worried about?
Perhaps we should be way more worried about the bureaucrat scenario. Not that the machines will overthrow us, but that our existing human institutions, our banks, our Congress, our political parties, will use these machines to lock in their own power so effectively that nothing can ever change again.
The bureaucrat scenario.
Yeah.
That is significantly less exciting than a robot war, but somehow so much scarier. It's just a very boring, highly efficient dystopia.
It is certainly something to ponder as these rules get written.
We will leave it right there. As always, don't just read the headlines, check the incentives. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.